Assalamu alaikum everyone. You are live with Strong by Humera. I hope everyone's Ramadan is going well. We're halfway in. I hope everybody's making the most of it. And if you feel like you haven't made the most of it so far, you've still got another 15 days, inshallah, 15, 16 days. Remember, Ramadan is a time for reflection, making healthy choices. Again, like last week I mentioned, making consistent habits, healthy, consistent habits that can last you for the year. So inshallah, let's try and work on ourselves and be better versions of ourselves for the rest of the year. So guys, today's show is called Mind, Muscles and Menstruation. One of my most favorite topics ever. People think I'm a little bit obsessed with the menstrual cycle, but why not? Because it's my biology, it's every woman's biology, it's the way Allah's made us, it's our design. So half the population menstruates, yet so many women grow up confused about their own bodies. We're told that we're moody, emotional, inconsistent. Basically, we become like monsters at a certain point in our cycle. Rarely are we taught that our hormones are constantly shifting across the month, and that's the reason we behave the way we do. There's a whole world basically happening inside our wombs. Estrogen rising, progesterone levels, everything fluctuating, body temperature changing, and yet we expect ourselves to perform the same every single day. Not happening, guys. Big message to the guys. Also, this show is also for men, and so that men can also educate themselves how to be with their wives, brothers with your sisters, fathers to their daughters, and understanding a woman's cycle just helps you be understanding around them, I guess. We're going to be talking today about how the menstrual cycle affects our mental health, our fitness, our motivation, and even our spiritual well-being. So I'll be sharing from a training perspective, and today joining me in the studio is Sahar. Sahar has got a very interesting profile, guys. She is a CPD accredited Muslim mental health practitioner with a degree in psychology. She works with Eclectic House and specializes in supporting girls and young women. Her practice is rooted in Islamic psychology, allowing her to support clients in a way that honors both their faith and personal journey. She's also studying currently a master's in psychology and neuroscience of mental health. Wow, that's big. So welcome to the studio, Sahar. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, alhamdulillah. Thank you for having me here today. Yeah, I'm excited. I think we've been looking forward to this for a while.
For a while, yeah. I've been looking forward to meeting you as well. But guys, for those of you that don't know, Sahar is one of my Malawi connections that I just found out about, and I didn't know she had moved here. So it's so nice to have you here, Sahar. So Sahar, after reading your profile, what made you go into psychology? What made you want to study psychology?
So as you mentioned, I was born and raised in Malawi, and I grew up in a house with my grandparents, my parents, my siblings. Alhamdulillah, we all lived together. And before I moved, my grandfather got diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's dementia. And I noticed a huge shift in a person that I knew to be like super independent, super, the patriarch of the family who did everything.
Wow.
To suddenly forgetting like normal functions like how to swallow, and it just really intrigued me because I couldn't understand why. So going into A-levels, I chose the subject psychology, and I like really got into it, and I really had a passion for it, and I really enjoyed it. And then this shift happened in my life within the 2 years that I was doing my A-levels. I mean, I knew it was happening from beforehand, but it basically deteriorated quite a bit during my last 2 years of being in Malawi, and I always wanted to know why and how I could help, or what I could do and how I could understand it more. And my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, my Barbie, she's watched me grow up from a teenager, right? So she knows me really well, and when we were discussing, what degree I should do, she was like, what, you love psychology, and it was something she really wanted to do, and she was like, I really think you'd be great at this, like I really think it fits your personality. So in 2022 I moved to the UK.
Not long ago.
Not long.
Yeah.
I think my 4th year here now, alhamdulillah.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think I just wanted to reduce the stigma around it, right? Because obviously, as you know, back home in the villages in Malawi, a lot of people think it's black magic. There's no understanding of mental health when someone is ill. Yeah. So I think I wanted to always reduce that stigma. So I studied psychology at Queen Mary, and while studying psychology at Queen Mary, I wanted to understand the Islamic point of view. And I searched and I searched and I searched, and I couldn't find a course that I could do alongside my degree that gave me that flexibility. And then I came across Eclectic House, alhamdulillah. And they're the most amazing team. You know, they're so flexible to try and make things work for you. I did a self-paced option, so I couldn't come to Leicester every week or every 2 weeks for lessons. And so, you know, Khalil, our founder, he was like, look, Sahar, I'll give you the lessons. You go through it. And when you're ready for the exam, let me know. And that's how I did it alongside my degree. And now they're a huge part of my life, alhamdulillah. I work with them as a therapist. So I've got clients in the UK and internationally, alhamdulillah. I mainly work with young women, you know, trying to navigate life, trying to navigate things that life throws at you. They do a whole bunch of stuff. So I've also recently been working with Humera and Inayat on a Young Minds project where we do like workshops for kids to understand what's going on, right? Emotion regulation and stuff like that. And they actually also have a book on that for kids age 6 and over to sort of understand what's happening, how to make sense of their emotions. And the most recent thing that I've been working on is a guide, which brings me here today, right? On the menstrual cycle and how women can really understand what's happening psychologically, physically. A lot of women don't even know what the 4 stages are, right? So that's why I'm here today.
So today, obviously, we're bringing the mind and muscles together and hopefully helping women understand that they're not weak, but they're cyclical. And honestly, Sarah, it baffles me as well that there's so many women that don't understand their cycle. And I'm just thinking, how do you go on knowing that you're getting a monthly period and you're just kind of, I think it's a sort of an injustice to yourself and the people around you when you're not aware of your cycle. And it's just so that you can understand it better, but then you can go on and make life choices and just, I guess your calendar should be around your cycle just so that it helps you 100%. Understand what your body's going through, why I feel a certain way at certain points in my cycle. I'm definitely not a monster. I'm definitely not just the moody person that, you know, people think I am in the house. Like sometimes you go through these fluctuations of moods.
Of course.
It is because there's a whole world that's constantly shifting within us. And I think when I think of it, like, oh my God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us, given us this biology, and this is what makes us women and who we are, and that's why we're so different to men. How do you not study it then, or even just have some knowledge on it? Because I do function differently, I do perform differently. A man's moods and hormones throughout the month stay consistent, whereas a woman's are constantly going zigzag, up and down, and that's why we behave the way we do. And I think it's so important for women to address that. And that's why, guys, we're here today. For all the women listening, it's so important to educate young girls. I wish someone had taught me about my menstrual cycle when I was 13, 14 years old, and I grew up with knowing how to respond and respecting my emotions. So it is really, really important. All the women out there, young girls, everyone, educate yourselves on your period, your menstrual cycle, so that you can then function better and use it as a strength. It's not a weakness.
And I think that's also like the main reason we wanted to create this product is there's so much knowledge that people don't have, especially young girls. Like there's so much stigma around it, and, you know, other parents are like, oh, this is normal, you know, everybody goes through it. Or even like in a work setting, you know, if you call in sick and you're like, I've got cramps, and it's like, well, everybody gets a period, right?
I don't like that.
And nobody really has correct knowledge. And if you have correct knowledge, you can get correct action.
Exactly.
It leads to correct action. So that's why we wanted to create this product, especially for young girls, because it's so important. Like, if we struggle as young adults, teenagers who are going through so many other things in their life and so many other changes in their life, they need to understand what's happening as well. And I think that was the main reasons. Is like, there's nothing on the market that's like, here you go, here's an explanation, you're okay, this is normal, and this is what's happening, and here's how you can understand and what you can do for yourself to make it easier for you.
I'm so glad that EH has come out with this product, and they're creating this awareness and helping women understand their bodies, and even from as young as you said, for little girls to understand this, you're learning that from such a young age, and you're learning to just respect your emotions and stuff. So Sahar, from a psychological perspective, how does the menstrual cycle impact a woman's mental well-being? And of course, why is it that we feel like a different person some weeks? How people say, is PMS just in our heads, or is there real science behind it?
Okay, so looking at it from a psychological perspective, right, we have an infradian rhythm. Now, what that is, it's a biological rhythm that lasts 24 hours. So everybody operates on a circadian rhythm, which is the 24-hour wake-sleep cycle, right? So you have a sleep cycle. But women who reach maturity, they also operate on a 28-day infradian cycle, right? And during this, there's a lot of things happening. It's not just reproductive, right? It's psychological as well. I can't get my words out clearly.
That's me. That's fine. Don't worry. It's me all the time.
Which influences so many different things. It influences our mood. It influences our stress sensitivity, our motivation, our social behavior, right? Because it just influences psychological functioning, if that makes sense. And that's mainly because we have two main hormones, right, during the cycle, and that's estrogen and progesterone. Now, in order to explain it, I think it's really important that we touch on the phases, because I feel like a lot of women out there don't even know what the phases are. So I'm going to quickly touch on it and explain what happens in each phase and why you feel these fluctuations. So we've got the menstrual phase, right? And these are where estrogen and progesterone are at their lowest levels. Now, what does that mean, right? So estrogen and progesterone are directly linked to serotonin and dopamine. These are neurotransmitters in your brain, right? And they're sort of associated with, like, you know how people say dopamine is like the happy hormone, or serotonin. When they're at their lowest, your energy levels are very low. You need lots of rest, and you need more energy for emotional processing, and that's why you feel so low and so fatigued during this phase. You have reduced motivation, you've got a lower mood. So that's the menstrual phase, right? And that lasts, I mean, it's different for each woman, but I mean between 5 to 10 days, I guess, on average. And then you move on to like the follicular phase. Now, what does that even mean?
That's my favorite phase.
This is when our brain releases FSH. Now, FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. So this means like your ovaries are mature enough to release an egg. And this is where estrogen levels, they gradually increase. They prepare a woman and your body for ovulation, right? What does rising estrogen lead to? It leads to a rise in serotonin and dopamine activity in the brain. So that improves your mood, motivation, it improves focus, and you have greater social confidence, because obviously if you've got more of the happy hormones in your mind, you're like, okay, great, like I'm happy to socialize. But it's not like quite there yet. Like you're still coming out of that menstruation phase, like you don't feel 100%, right? So then you move into ovulation, right? And your egg is released, and estrogen reaches its peak, right? And then progesterone starts to slowly rise after this phase. And that's where you've got, okay, I'm great, right? I've got increased energy. I can communicate. Like, let's go out every day.
I feel like I can take over the world today. I do these really funny things. Like when I'm in my follicular and ovulation, I just know it because every single thing that I want to get done, or, I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about this today. I'm going to say this today. It's like everything that I wouldn't be thinking.
It's like all that energy from all the other weeks of the month have like
just
combined
all come
into
together.
One, and you're like, I can conquer the world today, right? So yeah, I think that's when you're mainly feeling your best. And then you move into the luteal phase, right? And my mentor, she calls this the Lucci phase. And those of you who speak Memon, you'd understand. So after ovulation, you enter your luteal phase, right? And during this stage, you've got high levels of progesterone, but things start to decrease, right? So your serotonin levels are increased, but it's the sensitivity to stress that's increased more than the happiness hormone. the happiness receptors, if that makes sense. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to put it simply.
Yeah.
So you're sensitive. You're really, really sensitive. You're, you know, self-criticizing yourself. You're irritable. You have heightened anxiety. You know, of every
bad thing.
Every bad thing.
Every
like,
little thing bothers you.
100%.
Every little thing. Yeah.
So that's the luteal phase, and that's why then when you go into your menstrual phase, which is right after, you're feeling quite low, right? Because although serotonin is high in this level, it's not high in a good way, if that makes sense. It's more stress aware, right? So it makes you completely stress aware. It makes you hyperactive of everything that's going wrong, if that makes sense. And that's why you get so annoyed at everything, if that makes sense.
Can I just share one thing that happens in my luteal phase? I always know I'm in my luteal phase when I can't parallel park properly. So I'm fine the whole month, and I'll be parking so confidently. As soon as it comes to luteal phase, I'm just struggling to parallel park, and I'm like, why am I overthinking this whole parking situation? But it's like, it's mad how the littlest of things in your luteal phase bother you and annoy you.
100%.
And I'm just thinking, why is like everything around me stressing me out? But honestly, Sarah, it's so important that women know this.
Know and understand
why they're feeling like this, right?
Growing up, like, also, like, it's just a joke, right? So, like, people notice when you're getting so irritated and so annoyed, or, you know, you get really emotional and you're crying, and, you know, this is the phase where you get your PMS symptoms, right? So you're starting to slowly cramp, you're crying about everything. So it's like, sometimes if I'm just crying, like, my mom or my sister would look at me and be like, is your period due?
Oh, they know it, yeah.
They know, they're like,
just
why
know.
are you crying? Like, what's this about?
Yeah.
Like, what is this really about? Because surely you're not crying because, like, your recipe turned out wrong or whatever. So those are the four cycles, the four phases in your cycle. And I think it's really important to understand what's happening to be able to know how to best cater for yourself. Because obviously, if you're in your luteal phase and everything is irritating you, maybe you don't want to go out with a whole group of friends because that's going to just irritate you a whole lot more.
And honestly, Sarah, I'm not even joking. Like, people think I'm a bit obsessed with planning events around my cycle, and I'm like, guys, you don't understand, because usually I'm like, you know, I'll be socially fine, I'll be out, I'll be talking, you know, I feel confident in myself, and then when it's luteal, I'm just like, I just want to isolate myself a little bit, but I think also just so that I can focus. And I think it's a good time. I think Allah actually, the way he's put the phases, I just think about it and I'm like, luteal actually gives you time to reflect on you. And when you're isolating yourself, you're just thinking about life more. Also, like, I enjoy that time off because I'll do some TLC, I'll put some face masks on. So it's really nice when you can actually respect your bodies. You can just have that alone time.
For sure.
You know, like, women, I know a lot of women, they're like enjoying like putting their water bottles, just sitting at night, just giving themselves that time. So respect yourself enough to know that if you're feeling that way, you don't want to put yourself in a social setting where then you're going to feel sensitive and you're going to get offended by certain things. Because usually when people say things, I won't get offended. But when I'm in my luteal phase, someone says something
you're
and
hypersensitive, right? And
I've not taken it well.
It won't even be something huge, right? It will maybe be like the tone, and then you'll sit in your car and you'll be like,
overthink the whole
why did she say that to me that way? Or like, you know, why did my husband do this way today? He didn't even put like the dishes in the dishwasher properly, you know?
He didn't dry the clothes for me today,
So little things like that will really, really irritate you. And I think you're right, you know, Allah is, the way he's created everything, subhanallah, that does give you that time to reflect and have that time to yourself.
So women, respect yourselves. You know, if you need to isolate yourself, if you need to say no for an event or a social gathering, if you can, then do it. Like, just respect yourselves enough, and it's fine. It's not about being selfish. It's just about understanding your body. So guys, you know how obviously Sahar touched on the 4 phases. I wanted to touch on fitness in that side of things. So my clients, Sahar, like, obviously when training clients, the first thing when they come into the studio, I'll ask them, where are you in your cycle? The reason why I do that is because, how you explained, in every one of the phases, you're going through the different moods, the different strengths, the way you're feeling. This also affects how you're going to function when you're training and when you're lifting weights. So when I ask them where they are in their cycle, I can then tailor their workout for them, which is not too intense if they're on their period or if they're in their luteal phase. And I can just see it when they come in. I just look at a client that walks in and she'll be like, oh, I'm just not having a great day. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're in your luteal phase. Come on, let's get you to just get some movement. You'll feel good. We're not going to go crazy with heavy lifting and stuff like that. So I think it's called cycle syncing, by the way. So you're syncing your workouts and stuff according to your cycle. Cycle syncing is adjusting your lifestyle, your training, your nutrition, social demands, just how you mentioned, around your hormonal phases. Our bodies are complex ecosystems, and hormonal fluctuations throughout the month significantly impact our energy levels, strength, and recovery. By understanding these changes, we can tailor our workouts to maximize results. This minimizes frustration, and ultimately you get the most out of your training. Obviously, the benefits of cycle syncing your workouts are it just avoids burnout. You increase endurance, strength. You get more recovery time. So if you know you're in your luteal getting into a period, you give yourself that recovery time between your training. So the way you want to train according to your cycle. So when it's your menstrual phase, which you obviously said lasts between 1 to 5 or either 10 days, because some people get it for 5, 7, 10 days.
So the average is like 5 to 7, I think. Yeah. But I think you have some extremes where it's like some women and some girls only get it for 3 days.
3 days,
other women
3,
get it
4
for
days,
10 days,
yep,
right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just really knowing your body, and it's just different things for everyone. Not one right?
A design or the way it is fits for everyone.
100%.
So obviously when you're in your menstrual cycle, guys, you start feeling like sluggish, you start feeling tired, and you probably won't want to be lifting heavy weights at that point. So again, it's just listening to your body. So gentle movement like walking or even like restorative yoga, this helps ease cramps and bloating. But sometimes people when they've started their period, they actually feel more energized.
Yeah.
Because I know the first 2 days I'll be down, and then the third, fourth day I'll be like, oh, okay, I feel a bit okay. So I can then go and lift some weights.
Because those are your hormones starting to rise, right?
Yes. So the key is just to tune in and do what feels best for you, really. Your
yeah.
follicular phase, which is my absolute favorite, which is your best phase, is where your energy levels heighten, estrogen levels are rising. So this makes it an excellent time for high intensity workouts. And this is where you can get your max reps in for your training. This is where you can go with your progressive overload. So progressive overload, Sahar, is when you're increasing the weight within your training. And obviously in follicular, I do advise clients that, listen, go at your heaviest, just you've got the energy, you can do it. So you want to then in your follicular, you want to be going for activities like high intensity training, max intensity strength training. You can do your running here if you're someone that loves your cardio, cycling, spinning, all of that kind of stuff. And then obviously ovulation is just about a day or 2 days. This is where your powers, you're peaking. Yeah. And so you, again, want to keep it at your high intensity training weights, hitting your 1 rep max again, hitting your goals and your targets. And then we move on to obviously the luteal phase, which is, like you said, the luteal phase. That, guys, by the way, is the longest phase. So it lasts for about 16 to 28 days. So it's the longest one. So nearly lasts about 2 weeks if you think about it. 12 to 14 days. That's mad. So
you know what I'm just thinking about? Sorry to interrupt you,
yeah.
Humera, but also, like we said, like this show is also for like brothers to understand their sisters, husbands to understand their wives. But I think it's really important to say it's also for women to understand women, because I don't think we give each other that grace.
No, 100%.
We really don't. Like you just saying that this is the longest phase. It's like, if we went away from a social gathering, there's always going to be something that's irritated you about someone. And it's like, did you notice how she was like this today? Or did you notice how this happened?
Yes.
But maybe as women, we should be the first people 100%. To be giving each other that grace, because we know what we're going through, right?
Yes. This is why I advocate for guys, keep a period diary. Yeah. So you've got the Flow app, and then you've also got, I use the IVPD. That's a really good app. Why you want to use that is it just gives you the days where you're feeling that way, but also, so how you mentioned about women, understanding women. I think it's so important that women uplift each other during 100%. These phases. And if so I have like certain people that I talk to on a daily, I'll just know by their tone that she's feeling a certain way. And if she said something or he said something, if she said something, she's definitely somewhere in that phase and she is acting a little bit cranky, but it's fine, Humera, you go through the same thing. So just be empathetic.
We all have our moods, and we all have So it's sometimes just giving each other that
grace. Yeah.
Just in terms of like period diary, there's also like 2 Islamic ones that I've been testing out recently.
Okay, nice.
So there's Ida and there's My Haid app, and they actually like, you know, give you a reflection point. They give you, you know, what ibadah you can do during that time. So I've been finding
I didn't even know there was an Islamic app.
No, there is.
Oh, wow. Okay, guys, that's something new that I just learned today.
Also, like, what we incorporate in our guide is like, what ibadah can you be doing? Where are you at? Where's your spirituality? What Quran ayah resonates with which phase the most? So it's like a guide that we sort of put in. Even like, as you were saying, the movement is like, what movement do you need? What nourishment do you need in this phase? What's your body craving, right?
So like, even so the way we train as well, so according to each cycle, so guys, the last one, luteal phase, and the way, no, that's fine for Sahar, don't worry about it. Luteal phase, this is where your progesterone takes center stage, and it leads to a rise in body temperature and a dip in energy levels. So you want to then opt for like lower intensity workouts, swimming, yoga, Pilates, or even just a walk, you know, just to get some fresh air. And if you're feeling at your lowest, but you're like, I don't want to just sit in the house and sulk all day, or feeling sluggish, you just want to get out, go for a walk. So it's very, very important that you prioritize your recovery as well with activities like stretching and yoga and stuff like that. I actually wanted to mention something, Sarah. So I have a client, and it was really shocking to me. She came in, before she started training with me, she said, Humera, I haven't got my period for about 7 to 8 months. Sorry, guys, my throat's gone a bit weird.
I can't even offer you water because you can't have any because we're fasting.
So 7 to 8 months, she said she hadn't got her period. And she said, you know, like, I want to see how training helps. And I said, listen, 100%, no doubt. Trust me, when you start lifting weights, you're going to see a whole shift in your hormones and you're going to feel amazing. Not even joking. We started training. This was in November we started training. December she got her first period. But then we thought maybe it's just the one-off that she gets throughout the year. She got her second period in January.
Oh, wow.
She then got her third period in Feb. And I looked at that and I was like, do you see what weights does for you? So lifting weights actually shifts your hormones in such a way that your cycle is performing properly and it's regulating it the way it should. So I just thought I'd let everyone know that, because it was so big for me when I saw that she was actually getting her regular period, and it made her so happy. And, you know, she was like, oh my God, I'm getting a regular cycle. Like, I've never had this. And I was like, do you see what training can actually do for you? So Alhamdulillah, guys. So that's
I've never heard of anything like that before. Like, I've heard of like doing stretches and stuff whilst you're on your period to maybe help with cramps, you know, get your muscles moving. But I've never ever heard of like exercise regulating your period like that. That's
mad.
Amazing.
It's mad, honestly. I think there's just so much more research that needs to be done on that, because it's huge. Sarah, do you notice your strength change across your cycle? And have you ever felt low before your period and you didn't understand why?
I think for sure your strength does definitely fluctuate. I mean, just hearing you talk about fitness, right? It's like you go through phases where you're either like, sometimes I'm like, okay, great, let's go on that 10,000 step walk. And if you know me, I'm really not someone who exercises. So I think for sure it does change, because like I think when I'm in my menstruation phase or luteal phase, I'm like, you know what, I've done enough, you know, like I'm just exhausted. I don't really want to do much. But in the follicular and ovulation phases, I think I'm more inclined to be like, okay, let's sign up for Pilates for a whole month, right? Fully knowing that I might not make use of that whole month, but it's that motivation and feeling like I've got that strength.
Good, yeah.
And I think everybody sort of feels low before their period, right? Or they get irritated. And I think it goes back to what we were saying about like how estrogen and progesterone, they directly influence serotonin, which obviously is mood regulation, dopamine, which is motivation and reward. Cortisol is your stress response. So these hormones like affect all of these neurotransmitters, right? And neurological functions. See, I could say it. That of course you're going to feel sensitive and low before your period. I think that's completely normal. You're going to feel irritable, you're going to have anxiety, you're going to feel emotionally overwhelmed. These aren't character flaws, right? It's neurobiological sensitivity. Like you're feeling this way for a reason.
I love that you're explaining this. I love it, because right now I'm just thinking, where am I in my phase? Okay, no, I don't. It's fine. Let's not say it. Why does PMS make some women feel anxious or depressed? And obviously, you've touched on that. That's the main reasons, like how you mentioned the luteal phase, the hormones fluctuation. What, you've explained all that, what's happening neurologically. That's the word. And does that also stem from PMS to then PMDD?
Okay, so firstly, PMDD, right? What is that? Let's define that, right? So PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, right? So you have PMS and then you have PMDD. PMS is, as we've spoken about, right? Mood shifts, manageable irritability, some anxiety or low mood, but it doesn't impair your functioning. And I think that's the direct boundary line crossed, right? When it starts to affect your relationships, your works, you've got severe depression, right? That's when you start falling into the line of PMDD. You've got intense anxiety, you've got rage, like there's irritability, and then you've got rage, and suicidal thoughts. And I think that's when you start to realize that, okay, here's the line and here's where I'm crossing it from PMS to PMDD. And women at this point is like, you need to seek help, right? If your symptoms are disrupting work, study, relationships, and especially if they're suicidal thoughts,
you
right?
Definitely got to seek help.
You've got to seek help. And I think what's important to realize is PMDD is linked to abnormal brain sensitivity to your hormones, okay? Not abnormal hormone levels. So as much as you may go for a blood test and be like, okay, but my estrogen and progesterone are functioning normally, actually that's not the problem, right? The problem is that your brain sensitivity to these hormonal changes is not working exactly as it should be. This doesn't mean that it's not treatable, right? You can go to therapy. There's you can change your lifestyle. You sometimes get hormonal treatment and SSRIs to try and help that. But I think the direct line when PMS becomes PMDD is when it starts to impair your normal everyday today functioning. And you start getting suicidal thoughts.
I didn't know it could go that extreme, but if anyone is feeling that way, please do seek help. And it's not normal to feel that way, because PMS is normal and you do get the irritations, but then there's a level of that. I think there's if it passes that level of irritation where you're constantly raged, and the way you said you're getting suicidal thoughts, I think it's so important to make sure you get help. So I was moving on. This is my favorite part, actually. As Muslim women, we also experience a spiritual shift during menstruation. Some women feel disconnected or low, not just physically, but actually spiritually, and in connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and praying and everything. How can women navigate that emotionally?
Good question. Okay. I think it's important, first and foremost, to always remember that our bodies are an amana from Allah, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us you can't pray, you can't fast. This is out of mercy. This is out of rahmah, right? This is his rahmah coming onto us to be like, you're going through a lot during this phase. Here's your break, It's not punishment, right? How can it be punishment if this is what he's created? And I think it's really important to understand that, right? Like, why would he be punishing you for something he created? So I think the way women spiritually navigate their period when they feel disconnected is just having correct knowledge, right? Because correct knowledge leads to correct action, which leads to correct feeling. And that's like a concept we use a lot in Islamic psychology and at EH. Because when you have that wisdom and that knowledge, you can action it correctly, and then you have the correct feelings, right? So if you don't have the correct knowledge, right, which is, okay, Allah is punishing me, then the action would be to feel guilty or punish yourself for it. Then you're feeling really guilty and horrible. That's not how it's meant to be, right? But when you have the correct knowledge, which is, this is what Allah has done, this is how he's created me, right? How can I action this? I can do dhikr, right? I'm not distant from Allah. This is Allah's mercy. This
is actually
on me.
Like bringing you close to Allah, because you're feeling so vulnerable, you're feeling sensitive, you want to talk to Allah, you want to cry. I think it's the best time that I cry and make dua as well. Yeah, so amazing. Carry on.
And then you've got correct feeling, right? Where you're not feeling guilty, you're not feeling disconnected, if that makes sense. You're understanding that this is what Allah wants. It's mercy, not punishment. And I think that's a really key concept for women to understand, that it really is just Allah's rahmah on us.
Yeah. And it's not, it's how can you see it as a punishment? It's our design. It's not a flaw, it's rhythm. I look at it as like Allah's perfect design for us and the way we're biologically built. Sahar, I feel like there's a bit of shame around periods, and this is something Allah's obviously designed for us. So let me give you an example. In Ramadan, I know that a lot of women pretend to fast. Now, for me, if you're doing that out of haya and adab and modesty and making it like I'm doing this because I don't want my family to know I'm on my period. Now, you see, that becomes a bit of a problem because this is Allah's command, and Allah's actually said that you shouldn't fast in these days. Yes, of course, there's a difference between having modesty and haya in when you're outside and not, scoffing your faces whilst other people are fasting. That's just out of respect, 100%. Right? But then in your own homes, it's a safe place for you to be able to eat and not feel shy and not feel like I need to hide this from my dad or my brothers or my husband. So how do we remove the shame from menstruation?
Okay, so I'm going to bring this back to correct knowledge, okay? Correct knowledge would be understanding the prophetic teachings around menstruation. And I think as much as we've made a move in the stigma around it culturally from our tradition, etc., I think there's still a lot of people in households where they do feel like, you know what, maybe I should hide and eat, or maybe I should I should be in my room, or I shouldn't eat out in the open. I think it's something we're definitely moving away from. But I think in other traditional families, it's not something they can move away from. Right. And I think it just solely depends on your situation. Like, for example, if you're living in Malawi, you don't always want to eat in front of your domestic help, for example. Oh, right?
The people that are working for you, of course you want to
be able to
keep that respect.
Hide that. I think I grew up in a mixture of both. So I was the first daughter in my house, and for a while, like I said, I lived with my grandfather. Now, my mom was like, what am I supposed to say when you don't wake up for suhoor?
Oh, right. Okay.
So then for the first couple of years, I'd wake up for suhoor, but now like my sisters don't have to. And then eventually when the understanding came where my mom understood that, okay, it's okay for her to not wake up for suhoor. Yeah. Like everybody knows, everybody understands. I didn't have to do that anymore. And it was more like, okay, you can have lunch. Okay, you're not fasting today, kind of thing. So I think it really just depends on the situation, because here in the UK, I think ladies don't feel guilty to just sit down and eat a meal in your house, right? You've got that privacy. Whereas somewhere like Malawi, sometimes you don't always have that privacy. Yes. Do you see what I mean?
I think it is definitely dependent on everyone's individual situation and environment and stuff.
But like, as I was saying, sorry, I went on a tangent there. Yeah, correct knowledge, right? So our faith is so beautiful. It teaches us the adab of every situation, and our only job is to educate ourselves, right? So our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there's a story, a hadith, where a woman asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam about ghusl, right, which is taken after we finish our period, which is a bath, basically, for those who don't understand the term ghusl. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told her what to do and said, purify yourself with a piece of cloth scented with musk. And the woman asked, how shall I purify myself with it? And he said, subhanallah, purify yourself with it. And he pulled it to himself and said, rub the place soiled with blood with it, right? So you can clean yourself. But if the Prophet could openly educate and talk about menstruation, so can we. It shouldn't 100%. Be a stigma around it. That was my point of mentioning the hadith, is there is a difference between haya, modesty, and being able to do something that's part of deen. And like I mentioned earlier, this is how Allah created us. So like you said, I'm not saying while you're fasting, go out in a restaurant and just stuff your face and be like...
Be mindful really
not
of that,
modest about it, right? Be mindful about it, but it's also something that Allah created us with, and the Prophet ﷺ openly talked about in many occasions to try and educate us. So we need to be able to educate ourselves on that, and have that correct knowledge.
And I think that's why it's further on every believing man and woman to gain knowledge, and this avoids societal chaos as well, because you can always deem your own personal views, and then that goes above religion. But you've not understood that Allah has actually given you these commands. Allah has given us these days of fasting. And then obviously, then there's a reward in itself for making up the fast after Ramadan, which is, I know, a lot harder. Some of us struggle with it a
lot
lot because the qazas are just piling up. But I do think that it's so important, guys. Please do educate yourselves. It's part of our religion. It's not something that's made up, and it's not something to have shame around. And of course, have that respect for not stuffing your faces outside. But if you're in the home, because remember, it affects your health then, because if you're starving yourself whilst you're on your period,
100%.
you're affecting your well-being.
I think 100%. Starving yourself is not an option. Obviously, when I mention different situations that you could be in, I'm not saying don't eat and pretend to fast, right? What I'm saying is maybe you don't have that privacy, but you can take a snack into your room, surely,
and
close
just
the door
and eat it,
right?
Yeah.
You just, if you don't feel like you have that privacy, or you feel like you can't do it out in the open in front of everybody, don't feel like you can't eat, full stop, right? There's always a way to go into your room, have a packet of crisps, have some hummus and carrots. It doesn't need to be something big, but your body does need that nourishment during that phase, and that is why you're not fasting.
Exactly.
Right? Because you need that energy, you need that extra food source, need that
your
nourishment.
body's actually craving for extra calories as well at that point.
And you need that hydration, right?
Yes.
Water is so important. Water is so important. So please don't starve yourself or pretend
don't
to
do it, guys.
fast.
Take those days off. Let the men do all the fasting. We've got some days off in it. Take the days off. All right, guys. So, Sahar, moving on. If every woman understood her cycle properly, what would change about the way she treats herself?
That's a good one as well. I think, look, when you have, again, I'm going to bring it back to correct knowledge, correct feeling, correct action, right? I think you'd give yourself a lot more grace. If you understood what was happening, I think you'd be a lot more forgiving. And I think you'd know how to better support yourself. It's so important for you to know yourself, right? If you know yourself, if you know and love yourself, you know and love Allah, because that's what Allah's created.
Yeah.
And it's just, what, like you said, you schedule everything around your cycle.
I do,
because
and people,
you know yourself.
You know what it is, Sarah, that people think that they think I'm a bit crazy because oh my God, let me give you an example. Something like Umrah. It helps so much when you've got a period diary, because then I know you told me what happened. You plan your Umrah around your cycle, and that's just because then you don't have to take the pill to stop your period, and because then that has its own effects and the negative stuff that it does to you. But you can plan holidays around your cycle. You're not going to feel at your worst, and you're not going to be losing your patience with your husband when you're on holiday, and you're going to rather enjoy yourself, and you're going to be happy.
No, 100%. So I think once you have that knowledge of how your body works, what happens, what works for you, right? Because some people could be in their luteal phase and still go out and still be able to socialize, right? Everybody is different.
I do know someone that says that her PMS has never affected her. I think she knows who she is when she watches this, and that's okay, because some women PMS doesn't bother them, and they know that okay, I'm period, not big deal. But again, I do think it's just nice to kind of know what's going on when you're on your period, and but I have seen this person cry just before a period, and I figured it out. I was like, do you feel a period?
So 100%, I think that if you know yourself and you know your body and you know what works for you, you would be a lot more forgiving to yourself, but also you wouldn't put yourself in situations that would maybe upset you or do things that wouldn't work for you in a particular phase.
I think you'd just be so much more nicer to yourself.
100%.
Like, you'd talk to yourself kindly, and you'd do things for you without guilt or shame. And just like when I want to put a face mask on and take some time out and not have the kids, and I need to be alone, and I need to prioritize, because then when I'm feeling better, I can function better for my kids. So guys, the show is coming to a close. We don't have that much left. Sarah, do you want to share anything else?
Just if you're curious for anything that we've spoken about, please do reach out, and please remember that we are releasing this product. And I think as moms for your young daughters, I think it would be really, really great, as well as for you to just understand what's happening in your body. We've got a full guide that explains everything really clearly, including what movement to do.
Amazing.
What nourishment to have. So please do stay tuned for whenever we launch that, inshallah.
To every woman listening, your body is not inconsistent. It is cyclical. Your emotions are not a weakness. They are your signals. Your period is not something to hide. It is part of how Allah created you. May we learn to honor our bodies instead of fighting them. May we treat ourselves with compassion in our low phases and gratitude in our higher phases, in our high phases. May we raise daughters who understand their cycles and not fear them. Jazakallah so much, guys, for joining us live if you have, and Jazakallah so much for your time, Sahar, and educating us on so much. And I'm sure a lot of women learnt so much from this. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and have a lovely iftar.